Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Chris. Thanks for the yes. Hi, Chris. Good to see you. Oh my goodness. Okay. That was funny. You got to see my concentrating face probably. I can't wait to go back and watch that replay. Um, Happy holidays. Happy December. Happy almost 2025. Um, this is not going to be our normal marketing training. I'm not going to sit here and offer a whole bunch of strategic advice about, growing your practice or nailing your niche or whatever. But I still think it's going to be hopefully a really valuable time. This is an exercise today, the 8 questions that every therapist should end 2024 with. This is actually an exercise I've done myself in my own business and just found it incredibly powerful. And I mean, I'm a super nostalgic person anyway. I love the end of the year. I love thinking about where I was a year ago and where I want to be next year and everything that's happened. And maybe you're like that, maybe you're not. But this just feels especially important right now after the year that we've had. I posted in the group this morning, and it's been so fun to read the responses to describe your year as a practice owner, excuse me, in one word. And I think there's 100 and some responses on it already today. Some that I saw, slow, oof, that was funny. Beginnings, learning, roller coaster, a couple of those. Growth was another one, saw a lot of those. Steady, freedom, empowered, successful, chaotic, thriving, wild, disappointing. Like truly the whole range of things that we could be feeling and the things that you could be feeling about your practice, someone else is feeling it too. And you probably saw the email that I sent out last week just about how 2024 was just it was weird. It wasn't what a lot of us expected or could have planned for. And anytime that's happened, I think reflecting on it is really, really important. Some people are headed into next year feeling empowered, like that person that added that. Others are heading into it feeling nervous, feeling discouraged, feeling unsure. And so my goal here is that these exercises and these questions are just a powerful way for you to move into the new year, regardless of kind of how you're feeling right now. Before I get into that, I would be remiss to not ask you if you haven't yet to complete our State of the Industry survey. It's how we wrap up our year around here, and it's our way to keep sort of the finger on the pulse of what is working, what's not, what's changing in private practice. I'm going to be evaluating things like how did fees change? Is marketing easier or harder? How much are clinicians making? Full fee versus insurance, full versus not full. There's just a lot of really powerful data. The data is only as good as the answers that we get. And so if you haven't done that yet, it should take less than 10 minutes. walkerstrategyco.com/SOI, the letters SOI. And you can enter to win an Amazon gift card or a one-on-one session with me as a little thank you too. So if you haven't done that yet, we would just so appreciate your insights. Now let's get into these 8 questions. This is going to be a super long training, and if you likely will need to come back to this and really sit down and spend time with this. I personally journaled through each of these prompts here, but these 8 questions are divided into kind of 3 phases. So the first is a journey reflection. So thinking about 2024. Thinking about 2024, I'm curious what comes up for you. I want you to write down, first and foremost, 3 challenges you overcame this year that seemed impossible at the time. As a business owner, you run into those. Those are inevitable, right? There are things that you come up against that you aren't sure you're going to handle. If you're me, you lay awake and think about them at 2 a.m., night after night after night. But as we'll get into in the rest of these reflections, you made it through. But what are 3 challenges that you've overcome that seemed impossible at the time related to your practice? Maybe it was related to finances. Maybe it was related to conversations, hard conversations you had to have with clients. Maybe it was boundaries you had to set with the owner of the group practice you work with. But as it relates to your work, your practice, yourself as a business owner, what are 3 challenges you've overcome that seemed impossible at the time? That alone is a powerful exercise to reflect on, because what a great reminder that they seemed so daunting then, and yet here you are on the other side. Another question to answer related to your journey: what are 3 skills you've developed that you didn't have a year ago? What'd you gain this year? I don't care I care. I don't, but even if you're sitting here disappointed by your year, you learned something. You learned how to do something. You learned maybe therapeutically how to show up for your clients differently. But what are three skills you've developed that you didn't have when you sat here a year ago in 2023, headed into 2024 that you can do now? If you started marketing your practice, maybe you used one of our templates, you might know how to design a website. Heck yeah. Maybe you went through one of our programs and you learned how to write copy. Um, Maybe you engaged in new trainings and now you have additional things to bring to your clients. Obviously, that can look a whole bunch of different ways, but you learned some stuff this year, even if it was hard. And then another one that's just so powerful, especially in the private practice space, related to your journey, are what are three relationships that have enriched your journey this year? Now, those might be networking relationships. We continue to see, spoiler alert, in the SCOI data, the state of the industry data, that networking and word of mouth reigns supreme when it comes to getting clients. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a colleague that you connected with. Maybe it's a coach or a mentor. But what are three relationships that have enriched your practice journey this year? I think this is especially powerful because private practice can be, hence the name private practice, really isolating. It can feel often like you're on an island. So who made that island feel a little less lonely this year? That's a good way to reflect on the journey. So that's that first part of this exercise. The next exercise is about present appreciation. So where you are right now. That's why I wanted to post that prompt today about describing your year in a single word, because it sort of gets you thinking about where you're at right now. And so again, regardless of if you are on the extreme of like success, thriving, amazing, or on the other extreme of disappointed, unsure, whatever that might be, um, answer these questions. I'm proud of how I what? I'm proud of how I persevered. I'm proud of how I showed up for my clients, even when I was XYZ. I'm proud of how I got out of my comfort zone. But what did you do in your practice this year that you're proud of? I don't think we spend enough time acknowledging those types of things. Maybe you launched your practice. Hello, you're a business owner. I'm proud of how I became a business owner this year. But what are you proud of? Spend some time with that. Spend some time with that. Next up, my practice makes a difference by what? If you've never sat with that, I hope you have in some regard, and chances are you went into this industry and then, became a therapist in order to serve people. And that's probably at the heartbeat of so much of what you do. One of our core values at Walker Strategy Co. with my team and myself, one of our core values is remembering the big picture. And we obviously support therapists, but to us, it's bigger than that. We support therapists like you. You support your clients, which is huge. When your clients are healthier, their families are healthier, their communities are healthier. And so I give that example from the Walker Strategy Co perspective because we view the work that we do as making a difference in that regard, that if we can help you help more people, your impact is it trickles down into your clients' families and communities and generations. Like this is big. Have you ever sat with that? So how did your practice make a difference this year? Maybe that, a specific client comes to mind, or a resource that you've, created or put out there into the world, but your practice makes a difference. Again, no matter what, goals you did or did not reach this year. Next up, I've grown as a business owner by what? So therapist, certainly, and there are ways that you could consider how you've grown as a therapist, but how have you grown as a business owner? How have you really leaned into your role? I'm working on our full practice resolutions workshop for next month and updating that for 2025. And I talk about at the beginning how when you open up your practice, you want to just be a therapist, but you're also like the IT director, the head of marketing, the clinical director, or all of these things. You know, you you went into this to help people, and all of a sudden you have to wear all of these different hats. So how have you grown in those ways? Maybe you know your numbers better. We really encourage you to know your numbers, both in, kind of your marketing initiatives, but also in your income and your revenue and your goals. And that's how you set fees, things like that. So how have you grown as a practice owner? And then finally, a really, really wonderful reflection. My clients have taught me. So if we think about the difference you get to make as a therapist in the lives of your clients, because you are making a difference, what have they taught you? I know certainly we all learn from our clients, regardless of if we're therapists or serve folks in other ways. But there's always lessons to be learned. But what comes up for you immediately when you think about what you've learned from your clients this year? Because no doubt they've learned from you. And if they were doing this exercise, they could, my therapist has taught me. But what have you learned from your clients? Maybe you've learned about the type of work that you do well. You've probably learned some other things about resilience and just the amazing things that you learn when you come into such close contact with people's stories the way that you do and the way that you hold space for that. But maybe you've also learned about they've taught you about yourself. They've taught you about the work that lights you up and the work that doesn't. Why you are a great therapist. Like brag on yourself a little bit if necessary. But what have you learned from your clients? So that's that present appreciation part of this exercise. And then the final one, future connection. So I don't know, I'm getting emotional. I just really I speak to a lot of therapists and have spoken to a lot in the last couple of months, and I just know that there's a wide range of feelings right now as you look at next year and you think about 2025, and maybe some of you are doubting what's possible and others of you are like salivating and excited about it. And it's a big we're sitting on kind of standing on the precipice, I guess, a little bit. So I want you to answer this really, really powerful question. How does everything you've experienced so far, everything you've already reflected on so far, even those struggles, prepared you for what you're going to do next? And we don't know what you're going to do next. Maybe not. But how have you been prepared? Have you been prepared by those relationships that enriched your practice journey this year? How have you been prepared by the skills you learned this year that you didn't have a year ago? How did those challenges that when you faced them this year, you thought you weren't going to make it to the other side? How do those prepare you for wherever you're going to head next, whether you know where that is or not? Chances are, Kristen just wrote very important questions I never asked myself. Same, right? That's why I thought this was a really important, thing for us to do together a little bit. But you've been prepared, you've been refined, you're better right now, in many ways, I would imagine, than you were a year ago, and you can take that into next year. So those are my 8 questions for you. So we have I'll put these in the comments because if you want to come back and sit with these, you certainly can. But that first part was the journey reflection. So the 3 challenges you've overcome that seemed impossible at the time, the 3 skills you've developed that you didn't have a year ago, and the 3 relationships that have enriched your practice journey this year. And then there's, present appreciation. So completing these statements, I'm proud of how my practice makes a difference by, I've grown as a business owner by, and my clients have taught me. And then tying this into the future as we head into 2025, how does everything I've experienced so far, even the struggles, prepared me for where I'm headed? And I hope that as you sit with that final question, some of that prior reflection really informs what you get to bring into 2025. I don't know what's next for you. I know that I'm really excited for 2025. I'm excited to see how the private practice world continues to grow and evolve, and how we can continue tapping into the potential for marketing and the potential for attracting full fee clients, the potential for reaching your income goals, growing your practice to a team, whatever it is that you want to do next. I'm excited about the potential for that. Certainly, if you are realizing you need support in some of the foundational marketing things, who are you as a therapist? What is your niche? How do you start putting that into words and marketing yourself? We did open the waitlist to Confident Copy this week, actually. walkerstrategyco.com/waitlist. We reopen the doors twice per year at a lower, at a discount and with some extra bonuses, and you'll qualify for an extra $100 off if you join our wait list. No obligation, but just a great way to get some more information and ultimately decide if Confident Copy is the right next step that you've been prepared for, or if it's something else. But above all, I hope you know that I am your cheerleader. Truly, truly, truly. I believe in the work that you do. I believe you make a difference. And if you haven't heard that in a while, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the work you've done this year. And I'm excited to cheer you on in the work you do in 2025. That's all I had for you today. I'm wishing you a very happy holidays, a Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate next week, a Happy New Year, and I will see you in this seat next year. Bye, everyone.